mass grave sites to be finished immediately. We'll talk about that in just a second, but first off, I am Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. In fact, if today's video doesn't make too much sense, I highly recommend that you go through the last weeks of videos. I'm going to be talking about pretty much Russia and China and the things that are happening right now. And I'm going to bring up some very specific facts. Why I titled it, Did We Just Find Out When It Starts? Is because there is an actual date where these grave sites are supposed to be finished by, and it is very, very soon. But first, I guess I'll tell you a couple of these other ones. So first off, if you have not been following this, obviously the entire world is watching Russia. We have new information that says that there are new intel sources saying that they have not 100, not 175,000, but now 275,000 troops in Russia, some closer to the border, about half of those on the border, and then half of those about 250 miles away from the Ukrainian border. That is a lot of troops. That is a ton of troops. And again, all of the previous numbers, before they were confirmed, that same source said that same number. Human Mail said 300,000-ish troops. Yeah, pretty crazy number. So I wanted to go into some of this again. Some new things that have happened. Obviously, if you've been following me, back in August, we covered a story that essentially said that Russia was pumping a lot less natural gas to Europe all of a sudden, and it was not clear why. It was a mystery. A lot of people didn't have a straight answer on it. Why were they reducing it? That we will attach. All of the articles that back up what I am saying are going to be attached on marfooglenews.com. So remember, you can always go over there after the show and you can go through all of my sources and check my work. Now we have a news story. European gas prices, of course, hit record high as Russian flows via Yamal reverse. Again, we now are seeing even more, or I guess even less gas going to Europe. They're essentially choking them out or saying, hey, you guys are going to do this NATO stuff. You guys are going to mess with this Ukraine stuff. We're going to cut off gas to your people. We know they're not doing well because we actually have another piece from authoritative sources, and pretty much everyone is in agreement that the U.S. has just sent a flotilla of U.S. LNG cargoes to fuel-starved Europe. So again, these are all stories that are just coming out in the last day or so. So now you have flotillas heading with natural gas to Europe because Russia is choking them out. These are very clear acts of, well, I guess you could say that these are almost like kind of war games, or they're playing games with each other, and it's obviously not good. But is it the start of a conflict? Not exactly, because right now they're doing this back and forth. Right now, there are all the logistics set into place with all of these countries to actually go to real conflict. We have not seen so many things rolling in the same direction like this. I mean, I wouldn't even say the Cold War was like this. I would say that this is different, but this is different in a bad way, because we're seeing a ton of this line up. Everything is lining up, and there's billions of dollars being spent to actually take Ukraine. So personally, I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to take Ukraine sooner or later. I believe it will be in the next few months. So again, if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself. So off to the mass grave sites. So again, this is what is being said. This is from a European source. It says, WW3 fears grow as Russia approves plans for urgent mass graves and Putin prepares to invade Ukraine in 2022. It says Russia has reportedly approved plans for urgent mass graves amid fears that the third conflict will break out. Because I did not want to do all of that over again. So to get to the mass grave sites. So again, this is being reported by the UK Sun. The UK Sun does sensational stuff occasionally. They have been the first to break a couple of the huge stories in the last 2 years. They do have good sources. Their source for this one, though, is that supposedly there was leaked documents that came out of Russia. So that's what they're basing this off of. And they were leaked legal documents stating that they were going to do this plan to make these mass sites that would hold 100 people each. This isn't like, one of the, and understandably, regardless if there's WW3, if there's a conflict with Ukraine, anytime you have a conflict, there's people that have to plan for the unfortunate parts of that. One thing that people don't think about is this kind of logistical stuff is done every single time they get in a conflict. We had to do it in Afghanistan. You have to figure out, it's not a fun job, but somebody has to do it. That's the part that really trips out. And on that document, again, we're not making this up. This is something that was leaked out supposedly and shared by a massive publication that's owned by a massive media company. And they were supposed to be finished by February 1st. That's where we get that date from. If that date is correct, it would make sense that it would start after that. If they finish those, there's also a framework allegedly for to cremate and to get people out. This isn't like, something like, the coffins in the Midwest or some kind of dark rumor. This is more realistic because pretty much the entire world is watching this and saying they are going to take Ukraine. The only thing is whether the US, NATO, and allied troops step in between. So there's no doubt that they're going to take Ukraine eventually. There's no doubt in my mind, at least, and I'm sure most of you don't doubt this either. So again, if this turns out to be based on a document that's not true, we'll find out pretty quickly. We'll also find out in the next 2 months. I mean, we're talking about 2 months, which actually lines up perfectly with what all of the intel says. And maybe that's where some of this intel came from. Maybe that's where the original intel that January or February was going to be the start of this thing. Why we're talking about it is because if Russia goes to Ukraine, and just breaking this down for anybody that may just be under a rock, is that if Russia goes and takes Ukraine, we may be involved. This would be something where we get involved in a world conflict with another world power over a smaller country getting invaded. At the same time, we are also worried because Russia has been doing all of their drills, in fact, their practice runs to take Ukraine. Now we know that they have done it in Khorasan in their practice runs with China taking Taiwan, which no one is talking about. China, it's like it goes in phases. More people will talk about Russia, and then the next day they'll talk about China, and then it'll go back and forth. But nobody's talking about how this is all happening at the same time. They're lining up logistics in China to take Taiwan, and Russia is lining up to take Ukraine. Not only that, Israel and Iran, they are both lining up. They are logistically planning. And again, the number that was quoted by now news sources are saying that there's 145,000 troops 250 miles in from the Ukrainian border, and then the rest of the 275,000 broken up into two parties is at the border. 250 miles is not far. That's, a few hours drive for a convoy. So this is something that the world needs to be watching. And anybody that's like, oh, this, fear that, then, you're not paying attention to what everything is saying. If you're afraid of this, then I don't know what to say. This is reality. We're grown-ups. Grown-ups get into wars. That's the reality of living in life. And it's 2021, almost 2022. 2022, I feel like, is going to be the start of another era. We have not been in a conflict for a minute. We pulled out of Afghanistan. 93% of U.S.'s history, and you can fact check me on this, 93% since the U.S. became a country, 93% of it has been involved in war. That's an insane number. So 7% since we signed the Declaration of Independence, 7% of the time was in peace. So think about it. When's the next one? It's not going to be long. Will it come here? That's what everybody's afraid of. And when you have people that are afraid, and really it really goes all the way back to the fear of dying, that's what makes this a debate. People don't want this to be true. People don't want any of this to be true. People want to live in la la land. But unfortunately, this is going to happen. It's just whether we jump in or not. And if you go by what everyone is saying and the actions of them, they are saying that we are going to step in, because we more so want, I don't think we're going to give up the plan of getting NATO into Ukraine, and Russia will not have that. Think about this. If Russia had the ability to place missiles and to place troops on our border in Mexico or in Canada, do you think we would let it happen? No. And that's exactly what NATO and our allied troops getting into Ukraine would do. And we're not giving up on that. And now they're fast tracking in, and they've already applied. They've gone through the different steps. They've called meetings on it. So Russia has to do something now. Otherwise, they'll have U.S. on its border. U.S. and Europe and all of its adversaries. With China in the South China Sea, you've got Japan and other countries that are extremely, extremely against this and willing to back Taiwan. You'll at least see Japan jump in. And if our allies jump in, under the rules, we're supposed to jump in. So I don't know why people are thinking that this is so crazy and that this is nuts. I think people just can't fathom the fact that we would have a conflict on top of what is already going on right now. But unfortunately, that's life. So for the people that supported earlier and later, I will make sure to shout you guys out on our next show. It is Christmas Eve tomorrow. We have two different families, Dex's family and my family, and I've got 3 Christmases to go to myself. So we will have no regular show on TV. We're going to have videos come out every day, including Christmas, for this. And it may be smaller lives, but we'll definitely have a chance for the Marfoogle family to come together and talk. Make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com for our sources. Again, the stuff that's being said is being said by major publications. You can doubt the legitimacy of those publications, but you can also look at their track record as far as the stuff they have broke. So is this a news story to break, or is this a news story to debunk? I don't know. But what I do know is it lines perfectly up with all of the other dates we have received. That would be a relief that it's not happening on Christmas Eve, right? Because some intel says that it may start tomorrow. That sounds crazy, but that's what intel is saying in certain areas. Experts and analysts, though, look at February as like the last month. That's as far out as the intel goes. Make sure to go protect yourself against EMP. If you want to go over to our website and go to EMP Shield, go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Every purchase helps the channel. We appreciate that. That helps me pay for Dex. Again, that helps me pay to keep the lights on. Thank you, everybody, for keeping the Marfia going. Thank you for those of you who watch our channel with an open mind. Again, we're doing our best to pass on information, but part of this is my opinion. And I don't like sharing opinions unless I have a really good idea of what's going on. And I do feel like either way, this is going to happen. Even if there's a big in the cahoots thing, they're going to do the show and we're all going to watch. I guess the only fear that we have is if we're going to be in that show. I don't personally want to be on the credits for this movie. So thank you guys. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody that supported. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out.